following program on Ada Derana 24 is classified for general audience. It is intended for all ages. It contains little or no violence, no strong language, and little or no sexual dialogue or situations.
Tonight, we discuss the intricacies of academic freedom. Does Sri Lanka practice true academic freedom? And what are the obstacles in its proliferation? A very good evening and thank you for joining us on yet another episode of Law, Land and Liberty, where we bring to you key legal updates and break it down for the layman. Now, today's topic is something that affects a lot of the viewers watching tonight, and that's on academic freedom. Now, academic freedom might come off as a very colloquial term, the freedom to study anything, but actually that's not the case. There's a lot more intricacies relating to this freedom, and a lot of us really don't know if we are awarded such privileges in Sri Lanka legislation either. But to talk about this specific and timely topic, we have someone that is not a new face on the show. Actually, he was here a few episodes prior as well, and it's going to be a little bit of a continuation on that aspect in some regards, and that is attorney at law Krisantha Nissanka. So thanks again for taking the time to explain to us this extremely intricate topic. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much for inviting me.
Well, a bit of an introduction into our discussion now. We're going to be breaking it down into three parts as always. First, we'll be approaching the basics. What is academic freedom in a legal and also colloquial sense? Next, we'll be talking about the current context, how exactly academic freedom is threatened in Sri Lanka and how the context is globally. And then finally, we'll be talking about the future of academic freedom here in Sri Lanka.
Hello. My name is Krisantha and I am a university student. My question is on academic freedoms, but law governs the right to learn.
All right, well, without any further ado, let's get right into this discussion. So thank you very much once again for taking the time. It's a very sensitive topic, it's a very timely topic, and it affects a lot of us on a personal level as well, because academia is not something to be messed with, of course. It's something that affects the rest of our lives. Well, before we get into the specifics and the problems that are facing, that academic freedom is facing, can you please explain to our viewers exactly what academic freedom is?
To make it short, I can say it's the right to know. That goes with the right to learn, the right to express yourself, the right to discuss things on an equal footing. So academic freedom was defined by the World University Service 4 decades back. And the reason why this topic came up was due to the governments trying to interfere in academic matters, especially in higher educational institutions. The government most of the governments interfered in the matters with lecturers, students and these things, and therefore the World University Service in Geneva decided that they should have a definition and as well as a international covenant on this particular subject. So therefore they initiated this matter, and in Lima there is a in Peru there is a special city called Lima. They met each other, the World University Service met at the Lima city, and they proposed somewhat a basic document to be submitted to go for a covenant. That covenant amounts to be the basic document on academic freedom. That is the Lima Declaration on Academic Freedom. That is where all these definitions are.
Right. So is the Lima Declaration the only piece of legislature or akin to legislature that we see relating to academic freedom?
Do you mean, what do you mean, locally or internationally?
Internationally, sir.
Internationally, that is the basic document because they were the frontiers. I mean, the World University Service was the frontier in this matter, and it was they who initiated the matter, so that goes on.
Right. And sir, I think, well, now we know exactly how academic freedom came to be and what is the prime piece of legal documents that actually governs and defines such a freedom. So in the local context, how do we see academic freedom being proliferated right now on a local level?
Well, during my, I mean, I was in the university, Open University. I did my studies, legal studies, and I was the president of the students' union then. I got this particular document and wanted the academia to take this matter into consideration, but they were not interested in it. But later on, I did publish this in Sinhala. I translated this Lima Declaration on Academic Freedom in Sinhala, and I had a magazine called Vyurtha. I was then the editor at that time in the university, and this was published, this was circulated among 17,000 students in the university. That is the largest students' union body in the country. So, and most of the members were elderly people who have done their first degree, who were sitting for the second degree at the Open University. So a vast number of intellects had the opportunity of going through this. But sad to say, the principles which were laid down in this particular piece of work, that is the Lima Declaration, has not been adhered to. So in the present context, especially regarding this ethical documents, which this amounts to academic ethics. The basic principle in this document is that there should not be interference by anyone regarding academic matters. So truth is truth. So you can't put down the truth and get someone's opinion on top of it. So that was the main idea. And locally, this comes now under human rights. You can take it under the right to knowledge or right to education. But there is a very special provision in the Constitution which discusses this matter in great length, and it has a historical background to it. That is, these universities were not, we had universities throughout history. Sri Lanka had many universities 2000 years back. Mahavihara was one, Abhayagiri was another one. So the Buddhist philosophy was discussed, taught, and there were so many activities. And at the same time, there was this Nalanda University in India, which was ransacked by the Muslim invaders, and there were so many other universities like Takshila, Jagatpuri, Vikramashila, like those were the early universities. In these universities, actually those were Buddhist universities. So in Buddhism, there is no interference by seniors into academic matters. That is, you can question. I mean, Lord Buddha himself has allowed others to question him. The whole of Tripitaka literature is about questioning him and his answers. Unlike today, there was no Bana preaching. It was question and answer. People asked certain questions about his philosophy, and he answered. And those things were recorded at that time, and that was the background. So this is not something new to us, because we had this right. But for the Westerners, it was a very late interpretation on academic freedom. So the basic principle on academic freedom is described in Kalama Sutta, where Buddha says, merely because it has been taken down by tradition, you don't have to believe anything. You can question. Merely because your teacher says that it is so, you don't have to take it into account, you can question him. So likewise, that freedom actually is academic freedom.
So academic freedom is not just something that the West has defined for us that we have to adopt, but it's something that's ingrained in our culture and our tradition and our history that we have had for decades and millennia before such a Lima Declaration was even brought into effect. Is that what I'm understanding, sir?
Yes, definitely. Right. Lima Declaration, a very recent one, 50 years back. But our interpretation on academic freedom runs back to 2,000 years, 2,500 years.
Right, so I think that's a very important point for me to pick up on. Despite our background on academic freedom running back to almost 2,000 years, which is not a simple number, what are we seeing in the current context? How does it actually transpose? Do we have any sort of primacy given to academic freedom? What are the current threats that we see?
Well, the present university is a recently introduced one by the foreigners. To tell you the truth, it is not a what you call which has not come from the soil itself. It was introduced us, or it was forced on us. It was based basically on the schools of this country. We had schools, we had pirivenas in the early history. But when the Portuguese invaded us, they introduced their schools to teach their religion. So this is what they have been teaching in schools, and now it has gone up because that is the type of education people received during the past 500, 400 years. And the children who learned a Catholic type of education has gone into the university, and the universities also do not recognize these things. Now, say for instance, when I was in the university, I wanted my answer script back. I said, I want to see how you have evaluated me. I requested the Senate to give me my answer script back for me to peruse through and see whether I have been properly evaluated. They said no. I asked why. Because our system of universities never provide the answer script back to the student, the undergraduate. I said no, it can't be, because the Constitution is very clear on that subject. I have been already, all the time I have been propagating this idea, that is the people of this country has decided what the policy of the university should be. That is definitely under Article 9. So, in a country of our caliber, we people, especially Buddhists, have the right to question anyone. So in that context, this competition between the newly introduced universities and the earlier ones, the policies are different. So there is a conflict because the Western type of Ivor type of universities have not recognized this right. But we were successful at the Open University to get this right undone for us during my time.
Exactly, that's what's significant, the fact that academic freedom immediately does involve a two-way process. It's not just dictation by academic bodies towards scholars and people getting into academia. It's a conversation, a discussion that needs to happen organically. So I think it's important for us to actually delve into this specific issue relating to the threat to academic freedom. But before we do that, sir, could you explain to us now, we understand the Lima Declaration exists, and Article 9 in Sri Lanka is a very important and significant factor in protecting such freedoms. But do we have any other pieces of legislature that actually governs academic freedoms in Sri Lanka?
That is the Constitution once again. That is under fundamental rights. And there are certain cases which have described that people long-lasting right to education, starting from Kannangara. All respect to C.W. Kannangara, who introduced free education to Sri Lanka, being the Minister of Education, and most of his legislation focuses this I mean, though the universities don't provide all these facilities, to the type of freedom in education, the schools are much ahead. In most schools, teachers are questioned, and most of the students get their answer script back into their hands when the exam is over. So I was a teacher for a long time, and I know that we always gave their answer script back to them, but subject to certain conditions, that subject to alteration. We said, well, you can have a copy of the document, not the original document, and it's a recognized right at that level. So there is legislation to that effect also. Most of the educational principles and educational acts, not the what you call so-called higher education institutions. At lower levels, this is an accepted fact, and children are used to it. I think after coming to understand this principle, they will definitely question at the university level.
So we already see some form of practice, a healthy practice relating to academic freedom in the most primary phases of education in Sri Lanka. What we have to do is focus on the elevation of that to the higher education and tertiary education systems. I think that's a very important aspect for us to dwell on as well, sir, specifically relating to the current context and also key cases that we might have seen pop up in recent years relating to this issue. But before we do any of that, let's take a very short commercial break. You're watching Law, Land and Liberty. We'll be right back.
Hi, my name is Ulina and I'm a business student. My question is on the current context. Is academic freedom in Sri Lanka jeopardized?
Welcome back to Law, Land and Liberty. We are in discussion with attorney at law Krisantha Nissanka. So we were talking about academic freedoms, and we just embarked on a very magnanimous first segment in relating to the basics and the history of academic freedom and what exactly academic freedom is. So now that our viewers probably have a very contextual definition and also an understanding of what academic freedom really is, I think it's important for us to actually focus on the current context. Now, I know we touched briefly on the threats to academic freedom, but we really didn't get into practical issues that we have seen pop up in recent times. Could you explain to us in the current context, where have you seen the biggest challenges to academic freedom on a practical level? Are there any recent cases that you have seen?
Yes, the most recent one I have seen in the papers, the agitation upon the cooperative university matter at Polgolla. You know, Anuradhi, there are 8.5 million members in the cooperative. So the Canadian government, under the Colombo plan, gave a set of buildings to the government to have a trade school. And they put up this trade school at Polgolla in a 21-acre land. And it was called the Cooperative School, which taught the cooperative members and the cooperative principles and the rest. But that has been there for a very long time, and the cooperative sector has been influenced by the education received through that institution. And now we have come to understand that the minister in charge of the cooperative has decided to take it off from that position and dump it somewhere in Colombo. Now, this particular university is it's a higher education institute which has decided to introduce university degree level courses, and they have suggested to the ministers as well as the legal draftsmen to make new law. They have started the blueprint. They have supplied with the blueprint. Now, while this was going on, which served 8.5 million members, suddenly the minister has decided to close up that place and give it to some other university or someone else, and to have it in Kolpiti, where the whole premise comes to something like 80 pages or 90 pages. So this is wonderful. Closing a university with 21 acres of land and billions of worth of buildings, which is very suited, and that particular environment, somewhat like Peradeniya, is a wonderful place, which was meant for this university, and saying that it is not a profit-making institution, he has decided to shift it to some other place. And the cabinet also has approved it. This is wonderful. I mean, closing a school is to put up a jail. That is the famous saying. Because I study at Wesley College. In front of my school is the jail. So whenever something goes wrong, my principal used to say, you close this and you will be there on the other side of the... So closing up a university, if closing up a school is that much, what about closing up a university? And it's wonderful that the members in that university, in that higher education institute, has suggested to have a university, make amendments to that effect, make changes, amendments to the existing act, the Cooperative Development Act. While this was going on, suddenly this minister has decided to give it to a outsider. Now, I came to know that this was given to a convent. Now, closing a university and removing it from that place and giving that possession, that particular possession of that particular land to a convent, a school. What is this? This is very bad intervention on the part of academic freedom. The people, 8.5 million people of this country, it's their right to have that university there, that higher education institute. If something has gone wrong with that university, it's up to the hierarchy to see to it and makes amendments to that or reconstruct it. Instead of reconstructing it, they have decided to close it up there and dump it in somewhere else, which, Colombo is not a place to have you should have a large piece of land for a university. You can't put all these people into one small compartment and ask them to study. So there should be a compatible environment for one to study. So that was taken out from there and given it to a school. I think conflict of interest. And I'm made to understand that particular minister has put up so many cooperative societies, which he is the chairman or something like that. And I'm not. So, and this type of thing should not happen. And now this is the greatest threat, because unlike other universities, this university has just introduced a series of courses for a very nominal fee, especially on artificial intelligence or information technology. I went through the website and saw a small 3-month course comes to like 32,000 rupees according to the website. So that is a very reasonable amount for an average cooperative member to afford and to give their children that education. And when artificial intelligence has become the basic subject of the most provoking education system, to stop it and close it up and give it to some other person and to sell it to some foreign corporation, this is very wrong. We in this country know what artificial intelligence is. Because before coming to know artificial intelligence, one should know what natural intelligence is. For 2500 years, we knew what natural intelligence is. In none of the other countries, they never know what natural intelligence is. So this is defined, this is taught in our school, we know it, and the next step is artificial intelligence, the comparison between the two, and that university is going to be closed. That is very bad.
Right. So a question of curiosity there. How easy is the process for people in power in order to determine that a certain educational institutions that might prove to be a significant factor in bettering a society as a whole, how easy is it for these people in power to actually choose to close down and relocate and dissolve certain institutions?
Now their argument is that particular institution is not profit making.
But it is ironically a cooperative institution.
I mean, you are not supposed to make profit out of cooperative.
We just discussed this as well.
Now, when it comes to education, the productivity or the result of education comes at a later stage. You cannot monitor it by, monetarily you can't evaluate it, because it will take time. And this is, now all our children are going out of the country to get jobs. Now even to do that, they should have the basic knowledge, basic skills, especially on artificial intelligence, because that is what the world is asking for. So in such a scenario, the only cooperative university being closed, that is interference per se on academic freedom.
Practically we're shooting ourselves in the foot by doing that, because one institution that anyone could actually turn to in relation to getting educated for a better base and a better foundation is now at risk. So I think it's important for us to actually focus on this aspect, because we are discussing the current context. We've just seen how it's quite a big letdown as well in relation to governmental authorities forsaking basically education in Sri Lanka and academic freedom. Could you explain to us ideally how are governments and authoritative figures and committees supposed to protect academic freedom in Sri Lanka? How are they? What is their ideal means of action, especially in an instance like this?
Well, the education policy is the issue. What is education for us is the issue. I mean, why have we got into this situation? The existing universities, the education system has failed. That's a fact. And that is why we are in this trouble. So we have to change the education policy, otherwise we would be digging under our feet, right? Now, what we should do is, we have to get back to the original. Now, take for instance, we have been producing under now ICT, in communication technology. Now, the purpose of ICT was to train our people to work for foreigners. Now, the policy should be, we should be creative enough to do our, make our own production. To do our production, we should have that knowledge. Now I came to know that all these ministers, even the opposition leader is telling that things should be done in English. Now my position is that we should somehow or other make it happen in Sinhala, so more people would be more creative. This is how China got up. This is how Korea was developed. This is how Japan flourished. So only method of doing this is to change the education policy and make creative children, creative students, creative undergraduates who can understand the issue and solve the problem. not to answer the question. Now what's happening now on education is there are questions and answers, thousands of questions and 1,001 answers. That is not what we want. We want people to understand, children to understand, undergraduates to understand our current issues, and they should have their solutions to that problem. And to do that, the policy of education should be changed, and that is where we should step into.
Right. I think that's a very important aspect for us to delve on as well. But before we do, sir, we don't have much time in this segment left, but I'd like to ask you, relating to the language issue as well, we've seen now, obviously we've seen a lot of education happen in English medium because of the fact that globalization has occurred. But how exactly is this segregation and double standards when it comes to academic freedom relating to the 2 different or 3 different languages that are employed in Sri Lanka, how does that affect the future of academia in the country?
Now that is why I said the purpose of study is to be creative. Right? Now, Kumaratunga Munidasa, in one of his poems, he said, "Alut alut da notanana dayalova nonagi, singa kayama bari unatana lagi gaya maragi." If you don't create something new, you cannot exist in this world. So, are we to produce things for others, or should we produce things for ourselves? And those things should be new ones, where the others would buy it. So that production of goods to do, we should have a different education policy, and for that the language is very important, because now we don't have a language issue at all. I'm perfect on this, because I have been running a language translating service for 15 years, and we are in a position to translate 45 languages into Sinhala. Right? Now the AI development, now from last week the education department has introduced artificial intelligence into schools. So now it's a very positive development in the field of education, because our children will soon come to understand to handle matters in other languages. Well, even now, there are not only what you call there is hardware. Now imagine of a situation where you are a German and I am a Frenchman. When you keep this particular hardware here and you talk to it in your language and I hear it in my language, if I put up my earphones,
It's already existing.
that is there. So language is no issue. Spending so much of time on language is useless,
Right.
with artificial intelligence.
Exactly. I think artificial intelligence in itself is something we really have to discuss in an academic context. We previously did a program as well, but it's important for us to dwell on this specific topic because of how much it impacts all our academia and the future of studying essentially in Sri Lanka. Before we get into any of the specifics on artificial intelligence and academic freedoms, let's go in for a short commercial break. You're watching Law, Land and Liberty. We'll be right back.
Hello, my name is Bharat and I'm a management student. My question is on future prospects. Can Sri Lanka adequately protect the academic freedom of future generations?
Welcome back to Law, Land and Liberty. We are in our final segment in discussion with Attorney at Law Krisantha Nissanka relating to academic freedoms. So I believe we covered a lot of ground in the short and limited time that we have relating to this topic, despite its absolute vastness and how much we can get into the intricacies as well, and what kind of threats are posed in the current context. I had to cut you off, unfortunately, in the previous segment when you were just discussing about artificial intelligence. I think it's important if we pick back up there, how much does artificial intelligence impact the future of academic freedom in Sri Lanka?
Now this is a very intricate issue, because Now, when we use ChatGPT, we have come to understand that these have been programmed languages. So, what the ChatGPT tells us is what it had been taught to. So, the people who program it can play hell out of it. So, it's high time for us to have our own databases, because we should train our children to focus on our historical experience, which should answer our questions. So the people, when foreigners create artificial intelligence language programs, they don't want us to come up. So they will have all the nonsense in this field. So the government's decision to introduce artificial intelligence was a wonderful step. I think 4 million children will have already started learning, so that the Muratu University has rendered their services towards that end. That's a great achievement. And now it's high time to have these languages done in Sinhala. Now I have come to understand that a particular university has started coding, Sinhala coding, and they are on their research, and very soon it will be in Sinhala. So no one will be able to steal our things, and at the same time our children will have the opportunity of asking the question in their mother tongue, and the answer would follow in their mother tongue. And the government should spend enough money to upgrade this particular area, so that the whole knowledge of the world, as well as our traditional knowledge, say for instance, now I was, on the previous occasion I was telling you, intelligence. What is intelligence? For the Westerners still there is no definition, but for us we know what intelligence exactly is. So in the discourse on mindfulness, Satipatthana Sutta, this has been defined, and the literature is vast. 2,500 years of experience is there. Most of them have been taken to Netherlands, all these Lola Leaf books. We have to collect all those things and put them in one place and ask our children to do the research by themselves. So I think I have hope. I am very positive on this matter, and very soon the world will come to us to take this knowledge from us. So this academic part of academic invasion on this is, when foreigners do this software work for us, they always omit certain things. So it will be very problematic for us to solve those problems. So it's high time that as a nation, every single person should get together, that is academic freedom, and share their knowledge toward this end. And the university especially should take the initiative of take all this information, dump in one place, and to have our own ChatGPT, the so-called ChatGPT of artificial intelligence.
Right, we do have to make it a very organic conversation, because as you mentioned, not all experiences can be accounted for when only one specific demographic and one specific nationality or a specific region of the world that's actually working on such technology. We have to be true to our own unique experiences in a country like Sri Lanka. I think before we get into any specifics on future applications, before we finish on that, sir, I'd like to ask you, how exactly are we going to see academic freedom progress or even digress when it comes to the restriction that we're seeing right now? We just learned that a cooperative university that was actually helping with the proliferation of artificial intelligence education is at risk. So what would we see if such a negative connotation continues to progress in Sri Lanka?
Well, I think politics is an issue, but I think these children who have already started studying on this particular subject will soon find solutions. So my hope is that instead of suggesting it from top to bottom, let the answer come from bottom to top. So what you call this, there are intelligent, what you call software games like hackathon, and that type of games would do the needful. I mean, children should be allowed to involve themselves because it is their future. And the other thing is, Anuradhi, there is no age limit for intelligence. Buddha very clearly stated that even a 6-year-old child, a 7-year-old child, Sunita Sopaka, Rajkumar, all these children became arhats. So the greatest level of intelligence, they reached that level. So likewise, I think I have faith in the children of this country, and if they are properly guided by a top level of intellects on this particular subject, they will do miracles. I'm very positive on that.
I think that's a very positive note as well. I'd like to get yet another positive note from you, sir. Considering your expertise in this field and what you have seen so far and your experience, do you believe that if we do employ the current, the right tactics in actually furthering proper education in Sri Lanka and academic freedom in Sri Lanka, do you believe that we stand a chance against global superpowers and actually put a footing as Sri Lanka?
We can go beyond them. The principle is this. Now this human-computer interaction, that is the new trend on intelligence. Now, through meditation and through certain mediums, you can directly interact with the computer. Either you can reach the front end of the computer, or you can get into the back end of the computer through this meditation process, the alpha, beta, gamma rays, or with strings to the computer. Now, it's high time that we should start research on this line, and we are a nation who have taught its children, because about 20 years back, I started a program in the government TV program on mindfulness. It went for 16 episodes, something like that. And we started a paper on that matter, and I'm very happy to say that now every school there is a mindfulness training course. Every school, it has come into the curriculum of the education department. So with that knowledge and with this new AI approach with computers and phones and all these things, if you put this together and do the meditation and instruct the computer, that will be the future of our education, and that will solve all our problems. Not only that, we will be the pioneers in that particular subject to the whole world.
Exactly. So if we keep developing both ends, the mindfulness aspect, the human aspect, as well as working on the digital aspect as well, on the computer aspect, the software side of things, if we can properly balance them out, we do have a chance of actually making a mark in this very new field and also maintaining our integrity as a sovereign country with its own traditional roots. Before we end off this discussion, sir, I'd like to ask you, is there anything specific you'd like our viewers to understand or take away from this program, specifically relating to academic freedom and also the future of academic freedom, also considering artificial intelligence and its impact? Is there something you'd like to tell our viewers, sir?
Yes. Now, when it comes to intelligence, there is, if you keep a middleman, that will be the end of intelligence. So intelligence is something specific. So under Article 9, it's very clear, Buddha has very clearly stated that Pachattam Veditabbo Vinyuhiti, the truth is yours. You should come to understand the truth by yourself, through your experience. Anyone outside cannot bring that intelligence into you. You have to find your own path. That is called a kammatana. So this and artificial intelligence put together is the answer.
Right. I think that's a perfect note for us to unfortunately end off this discussion as time has come against us. I believe our audience can take away quite a bit on this very nuanced and very new topic. Thank you very much, sir, for taking the time to actually break it down for our viewers. Thanks very much.
Welcome, and thank you very much for giving me this wonderful opportunity to educate people on this particular subject.
All right, well, academic freedom is something that may not come off as an obvious right to most, but it is a privilege that all of us as citizens of Sri Lanka have a right to exercise. We leave you tonight with the words of William O. Douglas, who was a former Associate Justice of the Supreme Court of the United States. The most important aspect of freedom of speech is freedom to learn. All education is a continuous dialogue, questions and answers that pursue every problem to the horizon. That is the essence of academic freedom. That is all we have for you tonight on Law, Land and Liberty. If you had missed any of today's programs, you can always rewatch by catching us on our YouTube channel, youtube.com/otherderana English. Thank you for watching. Have a good night.